There's a saying, life and death begins on the membrane. Literally, your health, your hormone health, how you feel begins on your cell membrane.
Alrighty, everybody. Well, welcome back to the Champion Life Podcast. I'm your host, Curt Tucker. And today, friends, I've got a great episode for you. I've got Dr. Pompa on with me today. Dr. Pompa, how you doing?
Great. Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, this is exciting for me to share you with my audience. The podcast is the Champion Life Podcast, Dr. Pompa, and I call it living a life of abundance and freedom and victory, where we're winning in every single area. So I love to interview men specifically who are winning in life, especially in the areas that matter most: their faith, their fitness, their family. And for you, our relationship started back in 2013. And so today, I personally believe not only the reason why I wanted to interview you today is because you're an incredible man of God. You're an amazing husband, father, leader. But one of the things is in my opinion, you're the best detox doctor in the world. And you saved my life 10 years ago. And so many of the years that I've been able to live in the last decade, I feel like I'm living on borrowed time sometimes, because there was a time where I didn't know if I was going to make it another day. And so anyhow, thank you so much for jumping on, because I know you're a
Yeah.
super busy guy. You coach doctors all over the world. So I had just a couple specific questions that I wanted to ask you today. And I want to share a little bit of my journey and how we came together, but also you share your journey, because one of the things that I've realized more over the last decade is this epidemic of toxicity and of these things that people go through, that the Western medical world just kind of just chalks it up as another autoimmune disease, or we don't know what's going on. You're fine. There's no big issue. So I was hoping that you would start out by just kind of sharing kind of a little bit of your background and your
Yeah.
initial story of what got you into doing what you're doing, coaching doctors all over the world.
Yeah. I didn't choose it. It chose me. I should say God chose me for it, honestly. That was all the way back in 1999, and there wasn't as much of this neurotoxic illness, really causing unwanted symptoms, conditions, diagnoses from autoimmune, thyroid problems, diabetes, weight loss resistance, anxiety. I mean, you get brain fog. I mean, these are all neurotoxic symptoms and conditions. And we've learned a lot over the years. But that said, like many, it just started with fatigue, and then the anxiety, and then I couldn't sleep, and then feelings of dread, and then my gut went, and then it was running from foods, and then it was like I couldn't work, and I had a busy practice, two young kids, and I couldn't adapt to stress. I was just absolutely out of my mind. The anxiety got so debilitating, and so did the brain fog. And of course I didn't have enough energy to make it through a day. I couldn't really even practice the way I was. I was going to work just hoping my schedule would just cancel out. That's no way to live life. But I chased my thyroid, I chased my adrenals, I chased my hormones, and ran every test you could possibly run. And many, many years of not knowing what was going on. And this is probably the best part of the story. My wife literally on her knees crying out for an answer for me and our family. We had two kids at the time. We have five now. God spoke to her heart. Not only is he going to get me well, but I'm going to take a message to the world. Now, that did not go over well with me. When my wife would tell me that, I would say, I can't even get myself well. To me, it was, how dare you put one more thing on me of expectation? And so we would not see eye to eye on that. Well, here I am. So she was right, or I should say God was right through her. I've been 20 years of teaching doctors, as you pointed out, and, taking a message to the world. Everything that I learned came out of that battle. Everything God had to show me for such a time as this came out of that battle. And so I would never say I have every answer, Curt, that, but I have something very unique. And even alternative medicine today is missing the cause of why people don't feel well. why they try everything, why they change their diet, why they're taking all these supplements and going, why can't I get my life back? They're missing it. And I believe that's what God showed me.
Wow, that's so powerful. And I know that, not were you a chiropractor by trade, but you're also, a cyclist, you're very active. I mean, really just living life. And that's very much my story. And
Yeah.
for those of you guys, Dr. Pompa was an absolute answered prayer for me. I share Dr. Pompa in my book. I wrote a whole chapter,
Mm.
called My Battle with Mercury Poisoning, because, for me, it was 2 years of literally, going to, a neurologist, a heart doctor from the anxiety because I thought I was having, heart attack and panic stuff and the brain fog and the rheumatologist and the neurologist and the, multiple blood tests and all these things. I mean, there was at one point where I was on literally 6 or 7 different medications and antipsychotic drugs and Valium to
Yeah.
sleep and all these things. And I remember after 2 years, I went to a conference in Dallas and somebody prayed over me at a church.
Mm.
And I was coming home, and my Bible study that morning was Jeremiah 33:3 that says, "Call to me, seek me, and I will answer you unsearchable things." And that Friday morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table in a funk, in a phase. I mean, at that point, I remember back in my life being this 30 something year old, because this is about a little over
Yeah.
10 years ago, perfectly healthy, running businesses, all these things, into fitness. I know all about nutrition, or at least I thought I did, right? And I'm running fitness businesses and all this stuff. And next thing you know, this 2 years happens. um, and God says, call Rachel Axe. And I call Rachel Axe, Josh Axe's sister, because he grew up in the same hometown I grew up, here in Troy, Ohio. And within 5 minutes of telling her something that I've told every doctor that I've seen in the last 2 years and spent thousands of dollars on tests, she literally says, "Curt, do you have silver fillings?" And I'm like, that's a really weird question. No one's asked me that in 2 years. And I said, "Yeah, I got a whole mouthful of them." And she goes, "You have mercury poisoning." And that literally led to a week later me sending you an
Mm.
email. And I know that you don't take on patients like that, and you really still weren't then, but for whatever reason, my case was so much like yours that you decided. And immediately I didn't care what the cost was. I was like, I want you to coach me. So what a godsend there. But that led me to going through your protocol. And I loved from the very beginning your slogan that you use, which is, if you want to get well, you have to heal the cell. Because like you said, so many people are chasing so many different things. So you coached me through the process of removing my silver fillings and how to do it properly and how to detox. And what I thought I knew about nutrition and health and wellness 10 years ago is nothing. It's what's funny. So many of the things that you see people doing today with the fasting and the all these different things. I'm like, man,
All
I've
the
been doing that for
biohacks.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been doing that for years. So first of all, I got my life back because of you and your pain that became your purpose.
Yeah.
And now I've been able to help so many people. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been it's been really a blessing to be able to do that. So I wanted to just ask you this: is, when in your line of work and what you're doing now today, what are, the one or two things, because, I know we only have so much time here. It's like, if you were going to leave this earth today, Dr. Pompa, and you're like, hey, if I could tell somebody, here's the one or two things, because there's so many things you can do, right, for our health. There's so many gimmicks that are being, sold, and do this, do that. I mean, there's a lot of good things. But if you could crack it down and say, hey, here's just one or two things that I would recommend, that everybody should do if you really want to live a high quality of life, what would you recommend?
Oh, there's so much there. You can start with faith. But look, first of all, the recognition of your pain is typically where your purpose is. And God has a promise there for you, right? It's, that transition of thought, knowing that whatever you're going through right now, God has a purpose for you in it. And I always say, more importantly, a promise. When you look at the Bible, there's promises that we hold on to. And that means everything because God is good on his word. And
Mm,
if yeah, I always say if you're here, it's not by accident. Somebody's praying for you or you're praying and you're hearing these words. Oh, wait, these silver fillings, they have 50% mercury and that mercury goes into your brain. Yeah, it's like, there's a purpose there. Dude, I already told you that. Remember, I said, listen, I said, Curt, God has a purpose in this, and he's leading you to something. Yes, you're getting your health back, but then what's after that? Look at you now. Here you are, from
yes.
pain to purpose and a promise that God had in it. And, that's, what I speak to everybody. Look, I mean, I know actionable items, we have to change the way we think about our circumstances. And then you have to understand that most illness today is neurotoxic. And what does that mean? Certain toxins have the ability, not every toxin, has the ability to enter into our brain and nerve tissue. And when you look at what we are up against today, even more so than when I got sick and you got sick, it is remarkable to me that it's a testament to the human body God created that anybody can withstand it. But the
Mhm.
problem is everyone's detox pathways at the cellular level. That's where the cell is designed to get rid of these toxins, but it's wearing down and it's wearing down to the point where, the energy starts going, the brain starts going, the digestion starts going. But the fact is that then these toxins build up in the cell. And now all of a sudden the genes get triggered, the genes of susceptibility, the thyroid condition, you get the diagnosis, whatever it is. But it's these toxins that are building up in the cell. It's understanding that process today. Now, look, what can you do today? You can limit what you're exposing you and your family to, right? By, what do you drink? Are you drinking regular water? Well, you need to be filtering it with an RO unit. Are you drinking out of plastic? Well, you need to move that to glass. I mean, there's some simple things that you can do in, your life to minimize some of these toxins and understanding heavy metal exposures like these fillings. Don't run and get them out. They contain 50% mercury. But again, looking at your life from a causation standpoint and saying, what are the things that I can do right now? And what, are the things that I can do to improve my detox pathways? You'll get your life back.
I love that. And one of the things I love is how there's certain things that can be done because you can really begin, for me, to go down a rabbit hole and almost, when I started to learn things about, it was like almost because my wife says it's like once you know better you should do better, but also once you know something, like, you can't forget it. So now you're like I know, man, if I'm like traveling and I'm at a resort, it's like, man, the water that's coming out of this, what's in it, or the towel that I'm bathing in, like, what was it washed in? And it's like, you could really drive yourself crazy. And I heard, a doctor say this where he said, the body is so amazing, like you just said, and it knows and has the ability to filter these things out and go through. But if you can limit the amount of work that it has to do, you're better off. Because one of the examples that you always use, Dr. Pompa, is like a lot of people are sick. I was sick. That bucket, as you like to say, was already filling and filling and filling from all the exposure of chemical stressors. And I was sold into the company that I was in that, hey, sucralose, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with sucralose. So the protein drinks, the hydration, the energy drinks, like everything's sucralose, and you're just loading your body with that. So all these stressors just hit till one time something perfectly hits and that bucket just tips and overflows, and all of a sudden we're
Exactly.
sick, right? And that's really what happened to me. So one of the things I think about is like, what are simple things that people can do? And you just mentioned a couple, because that was going to be my next question was, hey, $20, if you don't have thousands of dollars for a whole filtration system for your house, you can put a chlorine filter on your shower. You can put an RO system underneath your kitchen sink for a couple $100,
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
some of these things aren't that expensive. But one of the things I think about that, some things that I know are great for our overall health, like that are free, like getting out in the sun and doing breath work and grounding and things of that nature. Let's talk fasting for a second, because I
It's
love
free.
to fast. It's free. Nobody makes money off of it. You're not seeing ads for fasting like you are, for the billions of dollars that are spent on pharmaceutical drugs and food companies, all that stuff. But you're big on fasting.
Yeah.
And so, why are you so big on that? And why would you encourage the people that are watching to begin to start fasting, whether it's intermittent fasting or doing, 3-day fast or a 5-day once a year or whatever?
Yeah, there's a difference of extended fasts, meaning multiple days, or daily fasting, where you fast for 12 hours, 15 hours, 24 hours, right? So that's become very popular, called daily intermittent fasting. But extended fast, there was one of the most brilliant cancer researchers, Thomas Seyfried. He wrote a book, many books actually, but he said that if one fast a year decreases your chances of cancer 97%. Now, why is that? Because when you fast, a few things happen, a few really amazing things. Number one, you get rid of, because your body needs energy through a process called autophagy, your body gets rid of the bad cells and spares the good cells. So it takes the bad cells, breaks them down, and gets energy. So you can survive, you can live. And this process is amazing because it will get rid of what is called senescent cells. These are cells that live too long. These are cells that will turn to cancer cells. These are cells that drive bad immunity, right? And knock down good immunity. So these are cells that age you prematurely. So the body will eat those senescent cells, and then it stimulates a stem cell and it recreates a new cell. So you have this regeneration process that occurs during a fast. Look, you reset your microbiome during a fast. That's your good bacteria and your bad bacteria. All these people trying to fix their gut. Fasting is the best way to do it. You also reset your DNA. You turn off bad genes and turn on good ones. All this happens. You take energy that you normally would be utilizing for digestion and you transfer that energy and divert that energy into healing things that your body was like, hey, I just don't have enough energy to do this right now. I'm keeping you alive. But now your energy, your innate intelligence, that's the ability, that innate intelligence what God put in your body that does heal, it all of a
Mhm.
sudden focuses on that thing that you need it to heal. All that happens. I mean, I could go on and on. But that's why I love fasting. Listen, I have watched miracles happen during fast, and I have watched the body heal itself. You harness that innate intelligence during a fast. The body knows what to do, but sometimes we just need to give it a break. Listen, animals fast, they do it instinctively when they have a problem, when they're injured, they fast, they do not eat. Humans, we have to be knocked on our butt. In other words, have the flu to where we finally instinctively say, okay, I probably shouldn't eat because I have no appetite. But humans have to be taught to fast. Listen, every religious group on the planet disagrees about everything except one thing, fasting. And, there's fasting is obviously there's spiritual perspectives there because we put ourselves in a weakened state, but obviously the physical elements are incredible. That's why I love
Mhm.
fasting.
That's so good. There's so much there to unpack, and really it is just it's a discipline thing. Like I've learned over the years, to just this last 5-day fast that I did about 2 months ago. It's like you have to learn how to play games with yourself. And I remember being out on a walk with my wife Rachel, and I said, I get to that 3-day mark, and for me, it's kind of like, oh, I've done good. I've done 3 days, like, but it's like I had to almost tell in my mindset, like, hey, if I was stranded, because the reason I use this example is because like sometimes when I'll tell somebody like I'm doing a fast, and they'll be like there's just no way I could do that. I would die. And it's like, no, actually, you would live
Ooh,
longer. like
yeah.
what you're doing is you're dying. But I'm like, I just play the game of like if I was stranded on an island for 5 days and I knew there was no one coming to get me and all I had was just myself and water, it's like you'd make it. Like you'd be
Well,
okay.
yeah, first of all, there's different types of fast. Most of the time, if we're doing an extended fast, that's what we're talking about right now. I do like 5 days more than three because you hit max autophagy by day four. So we like
Okay.
to carry it one more day. So most people do a 3-day fast. You're not even yet in a max autophagy or autophagy where your body's getting rid of those bad cells. But that said, I start most people on what we call partial fast. That is where they're eating under 1,000 calories and under 20 grams of protein. And typically, you know, under 50 grams of carbs, but that comes very easily when you're eating that few calories. But the fact is the body will still go into autophagy. It's actually better. You get better results for people who have metabolic troubles, meaning you have trouble even using fat for energy. It's better to do a fast, a partial fast, than it is a water fast. Then I typically will evolve people, depending on the results there, to a pure water fast. My son just finished he just finished an 11-day water fast, just water. And he then followed it with 2 partial fasts. And I have a whole system where we get people fat adapted before you fast, where we get your cells using fat for energy, used to using
Mm.
fat for energy. Then we move you into some fasting. He's lost 65 pounds. This is my youngest son. So he was the
Wow.
one that never listened to me until now. So you go on my Instagram page, you can see that he lost 65 pounds and now he's gaining muscle. It looks amazing. But he lost that in 3 months. Yeah.
While you're fasting, for me, this is more of a personal question, but sometimes I'll tell people like, hey, if you're feeling, while you're fasting and kind of like there's a lot going on, but what are the 2 or 3 things? Are you just doing water? Are you doing some type of an electrolyte, a Celtic sea salt, any type of, like, I know I'll use the True Carbon Cleanse, like the activated charcoal at night. It used to be Bind, and then I started using
Mhm.
the other one, just to help my body clear those toxins. So, do you still highly
Yeah.
recommend that? I mean, because the
Yeah. I
normal
mean,
person just goes and does a fast, and I always think, man, I want to make sure that I'm removing the toxins out of my body. That's why I'll jump in like my infrared sauna and sauna. So, what are your recommendations there for
yeah,
the normal person?
electrolytes are always going to make a fast easier because you lose so many electrolytes because you lose glycogen, that's stored sugar. But in a fasted state, you lose that stored sugar, but out comes electrolytes. So electrolytes will absolutely make a fast easier. You could do 2 teaspoons of sea salt sip throughout the day and maintain your electrolytes, but you could also take some electrolytes as long as they don't have sugar in them, as long as they're pure good electrolytes. I think that some of those binders that you mentioned are good because a lot of people dump so much toxin. So helping the body rid it, utilizing some binders is good. Again, I think it's another reason why most people would do better starting with a partial fast, and some daily intermittent fasting is good, where you just say, okay, you know what, I'm going to skip breakfast 3, 4 times a week. And see what your body does with it. But that means you're fasting through the night and maybe, you missed breakfast. So you fasted 15, 16 hours. That's a fast. And doing some of that training first before you jump into an extended fast is good. Listen, I can tell you this, going to all the seminars teaching on fasting. I've been into the teaching fasting since the 90s, and it's now in vogue. But here's the problem. Most people are doing it incorrectly. Now I say the feast is as important as the fast, meaning you have all these people that are eating 1 meal a day every day. It's not good. Eventually, the body thinks it's starving. And eventually, it
Uh-huh.
slows its metabolism down, starts cannibalizing its muscle and its organs. Not good. So, if you fast, you still have to feast. This is mimicking ancient cultures in this process. And it's something that I teach called feast famine cycling, right? So we famine, but we feast. We famine and we feast. We do that weekly, we do it monthly, and we do it seasonally, where we, make these changes in the diet. It works. It's how we break people through weight loss resistance, even a lot of different conditions. We change their diet weekly, monthly, and seasonally.
I like that. Speaking of fasting, where we're not eating, if you could give a person, one, and I know there's so many different cases out there, but one of the things that it's like, hey, people are consuming so many different things, right? And in the normal person who doesn't live this world, like they're just going to the store, they're buying stuff, or they're going out to eat all these different things. You talk a lot about the cellular health and about how important it is to have good cellular health so good can get in and bad can get out, right? What would you say of all the things that people should look out for that would be like on high alert? How would you prioritize when you think about things like unhealthy things like seed oils versus the artificial sweeteners versus, like, if there's like one thing that you're like, hey, Curt, this is a non-negotiable for me. These are the things that I'm like, because there's a lot of things you do, right? You travel with your own toilet paper. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, right? Where it's like, if somebody's new to this and they're like, look, I can't do 20,000 things, but what would be the one or two things where it's like, listen, this is non-negotiable for the overall betterment of my health. These are one or two things. It's like, listen, these are the things you need to do for everybody. What would you say?
Yeah, get rid of vegetable and canola oil out of your diet and most seed oils. I say the word most because it's rancid, adulterated seed oils that are in most processed foods, even in Whole Foods or other health foods stores, because they don't take heat very well. So get those out. But vegetable and canola oil, they're used in everything. Those stay in your cell membranes, and I'll say why that's important in a minute. They stay in there for months and months, not hours, not days. So if you eat a bad sugar, your body will burn it, and continually to do that, not good. But these fats, they come into your cell membranes, and that's where our health is. There's a saying, life and death begins on the membrane. Literally, your health, your hormone health, how you feel begins on your cell membranes. And not to bore you with the science, but can you see that? Okay,
Yep.
that's a
Yep.
cell. These membranes, these bad fats work their way into the membranes because that's where they go. So omega-6 fat is really the king of the function of this membrane. So when you're eating these rancid vegetable and canola oils, they make their way into this membrane and it drives inflammation. And that inflammation stops the good stuff from coming into the cell and stops the toxins from coming out. Life and
Mhm.
death begins on the membrane, so does your hormone health. Remember, on every membrane of the cell, you have these incredibly important receptors to your hormones. And when this cell becomes inflamed, those hormones, the receptors get blunted. So it doesn't matter if your blood levels of thyroid hormone are made normal by taking a hormone or just normal, and you have all the symptoms of a thyroid condition. It may be just because that hormone can't connect into that receptor and get into the cell so you feel well, because
Wow.
inflammation's blocking it. Those seed oils drive inflammation for months. They stay in those membranes for months. They block what's good to get into your cell for months. They cause hormone disruption for months. They cause energy problems for months. And then what happens is, and then toxins start building up in that cell even more. And then the more toxins build up, the less cellular energy you have. The less cellular energy you have, the more inflammation you have, the worse you feel. So this is a process that you can control right now by just getting
Mhm.
rid of those bad oils out of you and your family's life. That means you have to read the ingredients. If you see a seed oil, listen, seed oils can be good if they're protected, they're pressed correctly. That's not what you're getting in a food, a processed food. Okay, so
Yeah.
just avoid seed oils in processed foods and you're going to be just fine. But it's going to take your health to another level.
It's almost like a person that doesn't exercise ever and just sits on the couch and does nothing. That's my background as fitness versus a person that just goes and walks 30 to 60 minutes a day and maybe does some basic weight training. It's like a night and day difference for that person. And I almost think about how you just laid that out as like, if I just begin to make one little shift in my life and say, from now on, I'm not going to cook or use any type of seed oil or canola or vegetable oil. And instead, I'm going to begin to start using coconut oil and ghee
Yeah.
butter and some of those healthy fats.
Yep.
It's like you can, like, immediately, it's inevitable that you're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy because of
You know what?
exactly what you just explained,
You
right?
know what we used to cook in? Our parents cooked in beef tallow, and beef tallow is stable under heat. And then some wise guy from a junk study literally decided to say, "Oh, those are saturated fats, and they cause heart disease and cancer and all these bad things." And they introduced man-made fats, hydrogenated oils, vegetable oils, all these rancid oils that do, in fact, drive cancer, heart disease, hormone dysfunction. And we've been doing this ever since. McDonald's used to fry in tallow. Now they use, of course, vegetable oil in canola oil. Look, we have heart disease went like this. Everything correlates to the use of these man-made horrible fats that replaced what for centuries humans have used providing great health. And we have to go back to beef tallow. Cook in, oils that take heat like tallow, saturated fats, real butter. Tallow will take heat even more than real butter, but avocado oil is another good one. Coconut oil, right? Those take heat better. And yes, we need to go back to those.
Hopefully, we'll be seeing that. Even though I won't probably be eating McDonald's fries, but RFK will get that changed. So at least our kids,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So, well, one last question, Dr. Pompa. Like, I know you've got all kinds of programs, right? I mean, you're helping doctors all across the world now and other people. Where can people find you? And if somebody was like, man, I want to go a little deeper, maybe I've got something going on,
Mhm.
and yeah, I can make some of these shifts that we've talked about today with the fats we just talked about, or clean water, or whatever. But if somebody wanted to learn a little bit more about you, I know you got a lot of different things. What would be the best thing that we can lead people to find out more if you or your programs might be a good fit for them?
Look, if someone has a story like you or I and needs help, go to pompaprogram.com. Watch the webinar that's there. It's free. Watch it. That would be what I would tell you. It's going to take what we're talking about to another level, and you're going to go, aha. And then it even talks about a simple cellular inflammation test to take as a starting point. But go there, pompaprogram.com. Just to follow me, go to my Instagram. It's drpompa. And that is my Instagram page, and it's also a website. So there you go.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, guys. I can't encourage you enough, especially if you are feeling any type of the things we talked about, the low energy and all those things, but especially some of the major things like I dealt with and Dr. Pompa dealt with. Go check out his program. I tell you what, I mean, this literally can not only change your life, but save your life. And so thanks for jumping on the podcast today, Dr.
Yeah, man.
Pompa. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. And we'll see you on the next episode, and God bless.
Thanks, Curt.